All right, we're live. Um, well, welcome back, everyone, to another House Advisors live session. Today, I've got Eddie Saunders Jr. with us, and Eddie knows a ton about creating demand with content. Um, yeah, Eddie, thanks so much for joining me today.
Hey, now that we are finally here, let's make this a journey, man. So it's really good to be here and to talk shop. Always a fan, man.
Awesome. Well, as you know, my target audience, my audience here is agencies, and I think one of the things that they're often wondering is uh, how do we like what's holding us back from developing a really good content strategy for ourselves in order to bring in new business.
It's always interesting, and the best analogy that I like to use is like the mechanic who works on cars all day, but then has a crappy car that he or she drives home. And we're so busy focusing on everybody else's all the time that it's so easy to forget about kind of our own and kind of just shine our light. We know so well, and we're so good, and we're experts at turning up the volume for everyone else. And it's kind of crazy because you think that us being selfish beings, humans, we would focus more so on ourselves. But nonetheless, that's really kind of the biggest thing is just get that switching the mindset. And then a lot of the time it could be getting kind of stuck in specific mindsets of what you're really projected and really thrown into, because clients, they give us lots of different terms of what's valuable to them. And so when we get inundated with all this information, sometimes we forget that we too need to focus on ourselves and what's important to us and why we're doing it in the first place.
Yeah, kind of like the in the airplane, you got to put on your mask first before helping those next to you or something like that.
Something
um,
like that.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, what do you feel like is the solution? You mentioned mindset, but is there more to it than that in your mind? What do agencies need? What do service providers need in order to really um, develop a good content strategy?
I think we need to follow the rules that we so passionately express and require others to follow, and losing connection with those who simply said yes and why they said yes. I mean, that's a big misstep that I see a lot of agencies make, big and small, and it's businesses in general. And you're seeing this huge reshift of, instead of just jamming product features, and benefits and service feature benefits, whatever, down individuals' throats, we're talking about those solving what problems we're genuinely solving, and really learning what individuals are wanting to receive. With social media and content development being so huge, you're starting to see a lot more intention going into what's being created. It's not just we're going to talk about how we're awesome or just some cool things and really express a highlight reel. You get an opportunity now to directly communicate with the audience. And going back to like the mistake that's being made is we're connecting less and less with the audience. We build a business and we build an agency, but sometimes it's very easy to forget, what got us there, or really utilizing the same tactics that we continue to preach. So I think just connecting with those who did say yes and using the same level of care that you would for your clients to extract that information to get better messaging. Use that same playbook for yourself, because you already know what to do. You just got to do it for you. Show you a little bit of self-care.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, I know that. I mean, speaking of agencies, a lot of times they have just so much sort of stuff on their plate, and so a lot of times they're trying to figure out, okay, well, there are so many directions I could go with my content, um, but I'm like number one, like why should we give it more priority if it seems like it's hard to actually get it to work, and then maybe kind of in tandem with that, um, if you had to give advice to an agency founder about like where to focus their energy to kind of get the best bang for their buck, what would that be in your mind?
Sure. I mean, thought leadership content is great across the board, whether it's for your agency or for your clients. Just across the board, you're getting anywhere from 2 to 3 times more engagement rate via all of these platforms from that type of content. So it's really humanizing what it is you're doing. And it's so easy to kind of fall back into leaning into the brand, but we very much forget that regardless, B2B, business to business is H to H, and that's human to human. And so still remembering, William, what got us to that point. And then a lot of that is just expressing the thought leadership and the expertise that puts you in that position. And so not only with that, the data pointing to these types of videos humanizing the brand is just getting way more engagement. But it's also continuously reminding individuals that you're an option and also you're an expert. And I can't really imagine in those circumstances where it's really a bad, position to put yourself in to get more exposure by form of, hey, we are not only an option, but we have the expertise. And it again gives you also another opportunity to entertain and to engage and even more so educate the people who you're trying to talk to. With us as marketers, we understand that a very small amount of our buyers are actually ready to buy right now. So if we
Mhm.
apply the same playbook that we preach, and by being a little bit more consistent in our messaging, it's going to be hard for those people who we're trying to talk to forget that we're not only experts, but we're options because we've so consistently displayed that message and done it so with some really good intention.
Yeah. I feel like, it's funny, some of the agencies that I talk with, they seem almost allergic to the idea of being self-promotional on like LinkedIn or whatever the social platform is. Have you run into that? And like, what do you tell people who um, are just like, I don't know, maybe they're set on like, well, we're fine doing thought leadership as long as it's a blog post, but for some reason there's like this hang up with social media. Have you run into that at all?
Yeah, of course, because you have some individuals who, let's just be honest, are either like they're just too confident and they're not the greatest brand facing individuals, or you have these subject matter experts who like to hide in corners who need to be featured more and you have to pull and extract that knowledge. So that's one thing that I do understand can be somewhat of a constraint, but I don't think any situation can't be worked around and extracted in some way. And so a lot of that goes back to the experts that you have internally. I get some people being weird about, I don't want to promote myself too much. I don't want to do this. But then you have the complete opposite where individuals are like, I want to promote myself too much. And so the burden goes back on one, the individual to need to have a little bit of guts to put yourself out there because there's no way the world is going to hear your message or figure out who you are if you don't first put yourself out there. And we again forget the first word of social media, and that's social. And that requires more than one human being. You got to enter the party, you got to talk, you got to make yourself known, you got to show up, right? So that's a huge thing. But then the individual who wants to share out too much, I mean, just be mindful of your audience because there have even been times where I may have overshared when it comes to frequency. But through time and through cadence, I've gained really good feedback. And then eventually you get to a point that's really magical. There's no point to know when it happens or how fast or what fashion, but you'll eventually get feedback from individuals by way of in the comments section, the direct messages. You're going to start having more qualified sales conversations, and then you're going to hear it more in public, like, hey, I saw this video, or hey, you made this point. And when you start getting that affirmation, that's when you can zone in on the type of content, because some individuals are great in front of camera. Others, they're probably going to be best just to give you information and you turn that into a blog. You have to really work with the cards that you're dealt, but no matter what cards you're dealt, there's always a play.
Yeah, that's so true. Going back to thought leadership a little bit, I feel like that term is thrown around a lot, and
Mhm.
in my experience, I think of it in terms of, um, what are the commonly held beliefs in my industry that maybe by virtue of the fact that I, you know, go deeper in a particular area within that industry, I can provide some nuance or some clarity or maybe take issue with kind of the prevailing wisdom. Um, what do you think about that sort of definition of thought leadership? And I don't know, how have you thought about it?
I love like the position of thought leadership because you can see it in a lot of different ways. But my thought is to one, confirm the good things that are happening, the good business practices, the good trends, and to equally address the things that are not working very well that are to the detriment of the industry. Because a thought leader at the end of the day, to me, it's all about intention and distribution. Like how you one, are you intending to actually educate the market? Are you intending to bring good information? And then are you distributing it accordingly so that the people who need to hear it the most can actually hear it? So for those who either view yourself as a thought leader or not, whatever it is, you could really get into the nuances of what does that actually mean? What makes you a thought leader? Yada yada. But I believe people who have good intentions, good information, and good distribution can position themselves very, very well. And everyone's audiences are going to be different. And I understand that not every person with the loudest vocal reach, if you will, on social is always going to be the smartest person in the industry. That's not the point of it. But they are the most vocal. They are the one that individuals are getting eyes on. They're gaining more attention, and it all that knowledge doesn't mean a thing. And if you're the smartest person in the room, it doesn't mean a thing if you're sitting in the corner being quiet. So
Mhm.
kudos to the people who may not be the smartest individuals in the room, who may not be the sharpest tools in the shed, but they're out there still slinging good, passionate, intentional information to those who need it the most. So I love the thought leadership play. And again, root it back to having good intention to want to bring good information to the market, and then good distribution means in order to actually get that information out there.
Yeah, no, I've heard the example of just imagine that you're coaching a younger version of yourself when you're writing these things, because it's like then you have your kind of ideal client in mind, uh, and you're
Hmm.
also like it doesn't feel like you're, or at least maybe it helps you steer so you're not, you know, being overly fluffy or you know, uh, getting off topic. It's like, no, no, I can give myself like very practical, very practical advice. Um, and that's the sort of stuff that your target audience would definitely benefit from as well. Really, it comes down to like, are you open to being a teacher? Um, you know,
Mm,
so
I dig it. And I love that it goes back into coaching and stuff like that. And love your little phrase, right? Because I've honestly learned just as much coaching individuals as I have, been receiving the information. Like it's cool, man. I love it. That's great reference. I dig that.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I'd love for you to. I guess where should people find you if they want to keep up with what you're doing? And yeah,
Super duper active on LinkedIn. You can find me just Eddie Saunders Jr. So very easy to find there. Also, if you want to check out some of the cool things, got my website at www.speakfriend.io there. So feel free to check it out. And then on the personal side, I do some professional MC combat sports announcing. Find me on Instagram and threads at Eddie Makes Noise.
awesome. Well, Eddie, thanks so much. Appreciate you coming on. Talk about creating demand for agency services with creating good content. So this has been a blast, and yeah, we'll have to have you back sometime.
Appreciate you, man.